silver medalist at 215 pounds at the SCH Invitational. Brock Shaubel. How are you doing today, man?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, CH. We had a tournament yesterday for wrestling. It was an experience. Personally, I don't really like tournaments, but that's how it goes.
Well, it does seem to me that I might be completely wrong in this, but when I see you at these tournaments, you seem pretty like calm, cool, and collected. And I know like for a lot of people, it's hard at tournament days because there's so much chaos and there's so much like, what's my bout number and all that. But to me, like it always seems like you're pretty calm and you go into your matches and then you go and you try your hardest. Is that true? Like, do you feel like your mental state is like fine on these days, or?
Fake it till you make it, man. That's my philosophy. Like I try and like project the coolness and calmness, but I'm not like inside. I'm kind of worried, especially like going against the guy I already lost to last time at Pottstown. That like those are more stressful. Like just tournament days are just all like it's just a stressful environment. I don't really enjoy it.
Which guy did you wrestle? Like, which match was it when you wrestled the same guy as Pottstown?
That was the championship match for this tournament. And then yeah,
Oh, really? The Father Judge guy?
that's right. Yeah.
So how do you cope with that then? Like the stress that you deal with? And I mean, you still went out and you did amazing, right? So how do you kind of cope with that, chaos of a tournament day, the mental stress of like, like just neurotically checking your phone for about, I mean, you probably didn't do that, but like just a worry about what Coach Bennett's going to be saying, like you're up or whatever. How do you kind of cope with that feeling throughout the day?
Yeah, I don't check my phone because I bury my phone in my bag. So I don't touch I don't touch it. But for me, like it all like I started feeling like stressful for like games and matches like at the beginning of the football season. Actually at SCH at Springside Chestnut Hill, we had a scrimmage there. It wasn't an actual game, but it was like my first American football experience, and it was like I had to prove myself as a starting linebacker. And I mean, obviously, looking back, we didn't have anyone else, so no matter how bad I did, I probably would have started at linebacker anyway. But that was a stressful time. But it's like just thinking about all you can control helps like calm the nerves, and also um like just trying your hardest, like just knowing that like you can like try your hard. I know it sounds corny, but it's like just thinking that you can just control what you can control, which is putting in the maximum effort possible. That kind of cools the nerves because it's like no matter what, if you lose, it's because the guy's better than you. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, I like that mindset a lot of like do what you control what you have control over mindset, right? And I think the reason that's so helpful is because it helps to simplify life in whatever facet you're trying to compare it to, right? That when we tend to get stressed, it's usually because we're like thinking about a lot, right? We're usually thinking about this factor and that factor and this factor and that factor, but simplifying it to like one thing, just do as hard as you try as hard as you can. It gives your mind just like one thing to focus on, and you do that, and like the rest like doesn't matter, right? Like I think for me, sometimes like after I lose a match or like I face a big loss, my mind will tend to get into like an emotional state where like I'll start overthinking everything. But I think what's kind of freed me from that is some like a similar mindset to you that, instead of comparing like all the nuanced factors that can result in me winning a match, I look at one metric as how I can improve, and that's how many hours I put to the sport, right? Because people can, I think people these days are very impatient and they want like results fast and they want to just come out and their second or third year of wrestling and just be winning every match. But I think it's helped me to think about when I face those big losses, like how much time have I put in the sport, right? I've only been wrestling for like 2 years. So I think in any like thing you're comparing, whether it's like the match itself or like your career as a whole, just bring it down to a simple metric that you have control over, like how hard you push yourself in that match, or like how many hours you put into the sport. Then it's like, okay, you just do that thing and then the results will show. Like if you drastically increase the input, and you'll get some output out of it too. So it's an amazing mindset that yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you can't be mad at yourself for losing if you tried your hardest, right? It's like if I was going up against Jordan Burroughs, obviously I'm not going to win that, but maybe I'd be mad at myself if I didn't even bother trying. But if I try my hardest, it's like there's nothing I can do. And honestly, though, I was noticing like when I play games, football games specifically, um, like when I'm nervous for games, I feel like that's when I play my best. For example, we played Germantown, not Germantown Friends, played a different Germantown. Um, I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yeah.
I was shitting bricks. So I was shitting bricks. but like I had a good game. And I mean, I had some mistakes I had to work on, but I had a lot of tackles. I had a interception. You know, I thought like looking back on the film and like noticing the plays and using that as a metric for to measure my success, the more nervous I was, typically the better I did. But also being nervous is uncomfortable. So to ease the stress, just knowing that you can try your hardest helps to relieve that. So I feel like you kind of have to find a balance sometimes because, when you're in that primal state of like being nervous, like you're scared of something, you're afraid, you're nervous, it gets the adrenaline pumping like prematurely almost, like you're ready to go. Like you gotta do something.
Yeah, 100%. Do you feel like the nervous energy, like you're able to channel that in the right direction? Because I think that people might perform really well when they're nervous, they might perform like horribly, right? But I think the difference between whether you do well when you're nervous or you do bad when you're nervous is whether you're like actually channeling that energy to the right goal. Because I think some people's response to nervousness is like to suppress that feeling, right? To cover it up and like hide it to the best of their ability. But it's really about like using that adrenaline, like using that thing that's going inside of you to perform better. So do you kind of like use that energy to like help you out, or like how would you like describe that dynamic or feeling?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for the experiences of others, but for me, I feel like I guess I'm nervous on the bus ride. I'm nervous up until we're there. But like after the first play of the game, I'm in the zone, I'm playing football. Like I'm not nervous after the first play of the game anymore. Like all that, I feel like all that energy is going towards, running around and blowing someone up.
Another thing I want to return to is that you mentioned that like, okay, you're also like you might have lost the game, but you still had a good game because of other metrics you're tracking. Like I don't remember the exact what you said, but like how many tackles you had or how many yards you run, for example, right? I think it's also important that we define like what it is we're actually trying to get good at and like why we're doing anything at all, right? Because like I think people can get lost in like those external metrics, like the winning and the losing and everything. But if you're coming out of a game that you lost and still extract good elements of it, you can still use that to fuel you and like your ultimate goal, right? And I think it's important to define your ultimate goal. Like, why do you do this in the first place, right? And I think that's something you also helped me understand a little bit, right? Because like even when I was kind of mad that I lost, but you're like you still like work really hard, right? That's something you can extract from it. But I think if you get lost in the reputation, which is really what winning is, right? All you get is like the feeling that other people know you as a winner, right? That's really the only benefit of that, right? But if you look at the real reason you play football, the real reason you wrestle, it probably goes beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, yeah, a goal is like really important. And I mean, sometimes people have like shallow goals, like, oh, just winning, and that helps. Like the football team doesn't have a great reputation at Peddie for because we lose in the past years, and there was some team culture issues last year that I wasn't part of the team last year, so I can't speak on it. But um, yeah, people get fed up sometimes in like shallow goals, but it's important to like have a higher goal, like something that you can strive for like later on. Like winning a game in a week or winning a match in a week is like a short-term goal, but like how is that going to help you achieve your long-term goal? And that was something I kind of questioned when I first came to Petty. I was like, why am I here? I could be at home with my friends right now, having a good time on a Friday night, not having school the next day. But the more that I think about it, it's like my goal is to hopefully go to an Ivy League school, just based on my football, because I don't have the grades ordinarily. I've told like everyone this. I don't have the grades ordinarily to get into an Ivy League school, but hopefully I can use football as a means to an end to get to an Ivy League school and get an Ivy League degree. And then, that'll set me up pretty good for life. And honestly, an Ivy League degree is just bragging rights, just like winning. So at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of a shallow goal, to be honest, but you know,
Well, I don't think necessarily, right? I mean, obviously, like people who like just want to go to college just so they can say I went to Harvard. I mean, sure, for some people it could be a shallow goal, but I think when you made that decision to like come to New Jersey and come to Petty and play football here because you have like goal set for yourself, it's not necessarily a shallow, right? Because what are the reasons you want to go to Ivy League school? So you have like your life set up, right? So that you have like you can, I don't know, build a family someday or use that to kind of achieve something even bigger than that, right? Like what might seem to you as like your ultimate life goal of getting to an Ivy League school might just be like one of the layers of like, okay, now you've achieved that. Like, what's next? What's next until you reach that core thing that is like your ultimate goal of life. But I think we're constantly like sacrificing for that thing, right? We're constantly trying to find out like what is that ultimate thing that we want. and trying to sacrifice for it. And it's definitely hard for people who might be stuck in trying to chase those short-term things, right? That those things that like it'd be so much fun to like hang out with your friends in Canada, right? But you sacrifice that because your higher desire ruled your lower desire, right? Like they're both desires at the end of the day, but there's some bigger force that's kind of guiding you, right, to make everything in your life align to that purpose. Maybe would you say that kind of describes it? Or
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And honestly, when it comes to goals, I feel like everyone's goal is to be happy. Like that's just like a common thing. Everyone wants to, be happy. No one wants to be miserable. But the question is like, how do you become happy? Like, what do you want? Like, a lot of people want money. We want to be rich. That's how they want to get happy. You know, people want to, like, people say, do what you love. That makes you happy. I'm not sure what else, but sometimes people like don't know exactly what's going to make them happy. So they don't know like how to achieve their goal. And that can also like contribute to kind of being lost, like not knowing what you want to do, like how you're going to do it. Like you're just kind of like going along life like a drone or something.
yeah. When would you say like you were the happiest?
Um, Low key, like probably when I came back for like when I went back to Canada for Thanksgiving break, because and honestly that taught me. So basically, okay, so going back to Canada, getting to hang out with my friends. I haven't seen them in like 3 months. It was good fun. They're at school, yeah, but um, like during the day, I just kind of do my own thing, like get a workout in, and then after school, we hang out. We go to the gym. We do we do whatever on Friday nights. On Saturday nights, we hung out. They had a PA day. I'm not sure if you guys have PA days up here. It's just like a day off. That's called, it's like for teachers or something. But yeah, they had Friday off. So we had Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday night, I'm pretty sure. So on Friday we rented like a U-Haul truck and we just like were messing around with it.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, it was that was fun. But it's like that low key taught me, like when I got back, I was like, you gotta spend the time. Like when you have time, you gotta spend it doing like useful things. Like when I'm back home, I'm gonna spend it, with my friends, something I can't do at Peddie. And it's like you gotta make the most of your time. And I saw like a TikTok or like an Instagram reel like back in the day. It was like, there's 86,000 seconds in a day. And if you like call like if you think of it like money, like if you had $86,000 every day and it like replenished at the end of the day, you would try and spend that money as fast as you possibly could, right? But I mean, and honestly, you probably like you get what you want at first, and you'd spend it as fast as you want at first. But because you get this new $86,000 at the end of the day, you would just get like you take it for granted. But if you had the risk of losing that $86,000, then then you'd be wanting to spend it all the time, right? So you if knowing that you only have a limited amount of time with your friends, and honestly, I guess you could extend this to the bigger picture. You only have a limited amount of life. You only have a limited amount of time living. Spending it doing like important things and spending it like not wasting your time that's important.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because people tend to overthink a lot, like the definition of happiness and all that. I think I've also been a victim to that too. Like, what do I have to do to become happy? I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to sacrifice things that make me happy now and to be happy later. But I think sometimes just stepping back and not overthinking it, just being like leaning into like those moments where we're happiest, right? I think spending time with people you love is like the best way to be happy, right? Just recognizing who those people are and doing things you guys love together, you know? And really, I think everyone should strive to have something like that in their life. I think if you have a lack of relationships in your life, like with family or friends and anything, it's going to be hard to be sane, right? Or just wake up each day like feeling like fulfilled. Because like I think in our culture today, there's a lack of relationships in general, right? Whether first of all with the family dynamic, like we don't really have many families anymore. Like our the amount of families is decreasing like significantly, and like with I think with social media and stuff like that, like I think a lot of people are experiencing more like less of those kind of relationships with people, right? I think there's all these forces that are kind of taking away like relationships from our life, but really, I think the way to be sane and to be happy and to like feel like you're important and feel like you have some kind of responsibility in the world is like being committed to some kind of relationship or long-term relationship, right? With your family or whatever that might be, or even your community. But I think definitely over the last like 50 years or so, people have really embraced like this individualistic culture that I mean, maybe you've seen this a lot too, that, it's not about the people around me, it's about me. It's about what I want right now. But it's also not about what I want right now, but what one part of me, one thing inside of me wants right now, that low level desire that this will make me happy right now, chase that. And there's so many people that are just like sacrificing long-term relationships and family and community just for like short-term pleasure or like for what will stimulate them right now. But I think to me, like when I'm hearing your story, it seems that like those the richest moments in life are just those moments with people you love, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? And I feel like with social media, especially, it makes a lot of like shallow bonds. And I've noticed that Petty, like, I'm not a guy who makes friends really easily because I'm a friendly guy, but I don't like talk to people. Like I don't like initiate conversations. I don't go out of my way to make friends. So I mean, if someone is talking to me, I'm talking to them, then gradually we can become friends. But like I don't make friends very fast, very easily. So I noticed that Petty, like a lot of relationships so far are sort of shallow, I guess, because it's not like I don't know everyone that well yet anyway. But yeah, with social media, like, and with so many people, and you want to know all these people, you want to be connected. They're shallow relationships because they're just based on those like dopamine hits when you get that text message back or whatever. You know, I don't know if I have anything else to say.
Now that makes sense. When you say that like a lot, you struggle to like make those deep connections with people. I guess like what would you define as that deep connection? Like maybe that's something you felt with your friends back at home. But when you say that like when you meet people, like sure you don't initiate the conversation. Maybe it's like building up slowly over time. I guess like what is that like long-term ideal like friendship in your eyes that like this deep bond that I'm looking for? Like what do you think like the qualities or traits those people possess?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Like I feel like when you're friends with someone, you got to kind of like click, like humor wise or whatever. And maybe that just comes from like spending like a lot of time with someone, and you kind of get used to their way of talking or their type of humor, and then you get used to it, and it's funnier to you or whatever. But I feel like long term friends, they help you out, they're there for you, and I mean it's pretty standard like friendship ideals. But I mean, going back to what you like when you need connections, and like, have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's like belongingness, or it's like food and stuff, like the basic stuff you need, food and water and shelter is like at the bottom, and then it's like belonging, and then it's like materialistic needs and stuff after that. But you need to have that sense of belonging, and that's super important for people. Because I mean, we learned about it in business class. I'm not entirely sure why we learned about it in business class, but it's like it's super important to have those meaningful relationships, and it's hard. I feel like that's part of the reason why so like mental illness is kind of like on the rise, like depression and anxiety, because people are stuck in social media making shallow connections, not fulfilling that second um, tier of belonging, which honestly, I'm 17. I don't know the solution to that. I don't know what deep connection and meaningful connection really means, to be honest. That might be a conversation for a whole other podcast. I don't know. I feel like we could really dig into that. But, you know, that's that's part of it. I feel like just, yeah.
Yeah, social media is a big one for sure. When you mentioned like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I find that piece very interesting because, belonging is so high up there, mainly for like humans as a species, right? Like if you look at like a lot of different species, like they all have their different ways of survival, right? Like you have mosquitoes that will lay like 1,000 eggs and like one of them survives. Like that's their way of surviving and reproducing. But humans as a species, first of all, they have like the longest dependency period where like for the first like 11, 12 years of life, like you kind of need an adult. We don't consider you an adult here, like you're 18. Like you have like I think for humans it's like the longest period of time where you need dependence and someone to take care of you. Even like early in our evolutionary history, like even when we were just like starting out as people, like that's why like relationships are so important, right? Because you kind of need the relationship to raise the kid. In addition to that, like our strength as a species, like we have like grizzly bears and polar bears that are like big and tough, and that's their solution to survival. For humans, it's not like we're relatively like that special, like I can't fight off a bear and kill it. I know you're different, which we'll talk about later, but it's our strength was collaboration, right? Our strength was that using our intelligence to collaborate as a species. And because of that, for 200,000 years, the way like every circuit in our body was made, like all our dopamine circuits and everything was created to put us in like this tribal sense, right? Because the only way we survived as a species was in tribes. Because of that, belonging is just so deeply important to us because our monkey state of our body thinks that if we don't have those people, we will die, even though technically that's not true anymore because you can probably still survive in the modern world without people. But it's hard with the emotional state it puts you in because your body thinks you will die, like in a survival sense, right? So it makes sense that, that we're so dependent on other people. And there's not much we can really do to change that, right? That's kind of in our nature. But, as you mentioned, social media does really kind of ruin that because I think I actually made this whole like hour-long podcast on like the 8 reasons why social media, like how it kills you, which I haven't released it yet. But I think one of the key ones in there was that, first of all, like it drastically increases your social life, right? Maybe before you had 5 or 10 people you talk to on a daily basis. Now you technically feel like you have 100 people. Because of that, like as you said, that the more and more people you have, you only have a certain capacity you can give to people in your relationships, right? So slowly over time, it decreases, and you can only give so much to each relationship, and each one feels shallow, and you're constantly looking at what other people are up to on their stories and things like that, and you don't go out in person and like talk to people like you used to, right? Which means that you're not really meeting that need. But yeah, I think it's definitely important. I mean, it's hard to define like ways you can fix that, but are there any other reasons why like maybe when you've come here you've kind of felt that is this always like been in your nature? You think that's like unique to Peddie where you've kind of like been talking to people, but maybe that it's like slowly gradually increased over time? You think that's always been the case, or do you think that's like kind of specific to like now that you're here? Or
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a talkative guy. Like, for example, like I just let you talk, and then when you're done, then I'll chime in. I'll say my piece. But like I was talking with my mom in the car the other day when she was driving me back from the tournament, and she was like, for the most part, people who don't know you probably think you're aloof because you don't really like, you're not like a social guy. But then, once they start talking to you, you're friendly. You're not mean to people. So I feel like it's always kind of been in my nature to be like that. But going back to what you said about the tribes and how that's like ingrained in our nature, it's like, yeah, we've been evolving in tribes for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Like cities and stuff has been relatively recent. And then all this large scale connection between so many people has been in the last 100 years. Um, and it was interesting, like an article that my English teacher made us read, which honestly, that's an interesting class, especially considering topics that we're talking about now. It's like how sounds of nature can help decrease like depression and anxiety and mental illness, like how sounds of nature can help cure that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure what the science is behind it, but it sounds like to me, it's like, that just brings us back to our roots. That's how we evolved, back in our roots. And when you choose to like live in the present and pay attention to those sounds of nature, you're not worrying about, who's going to snap you back and who's going to text you on Instagram. It can help relieve stress because, when you're on Instagram, when you're on Snapchat, like all your dopamine sources are related to how these shallow connections of other people are going to respond to your story or your post. And it looks like everyone else is having fun. So you're sitting in your room and you get all depressed and all anxious. And yeah, man, I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to do anything, but I'm just saying, my experiences. And I found that article interesting, The Sound of Nature. So I was out there this morning. I was listening to some birds. I got this bird app. It's called Merlin Bird ID. It's by like Cornell Lab of Ornithology, or I don't know what the bird word is, ornithology.
yeah, don't ask me, bro. I got no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's a cool app. It like identifies bird sounds. And again, my English teacher introduced that, so it's pretty cool.
Wait, so it plays bird sounds, or like it helps you identify them like out when they're outside?
Like when like it has a microphone, and you just like press record and it records sounds. And then so it records the bird sounds and it'll have like the little chirping. And depending on, I don't know how it does it, but like it tells you what kind of bird it is based on its sound. And you can also like take pictures and stuff. But like I have a bunch of recordings of birds. I think one time I had like 17 different birds, but I feel like there was a mockingbird out there. So I don't know how accurate this thing is. I don't know if the mockingbird was just like putting fake birds into the things system, but yeah, it was a pretty cool app.
Yeah, you definitely got to send this to me afterwards. Yeah, but it's cool. Bird sounds in particular are pretty cool because I think we get there's so many birds around you, you just get used to them. But like I know that when I sit outside for a little bit of time, like by the lake or something, you hear so many of them and you realize that shit, there's like a lot of them outside. But yeah, I mean that kind of reminded me, like when I first met you, I think one of the most surprising things is that we seem to be very similar in a lot of the things we did, which is kind of like an eye opener for me because I hadn't seen anyone who I like 100% like related to in that way, like ever really, like in the last year or so. And there's so many like different aspects of your life that I look at and like I can relate to a lot, like getting up early, aspects of discipline, going outside, spending time in the outdoors. You could talk to me more about that. So we can start maybe with like this morning wake up thing. All right. So when did you start doing that, and how is that kind of why did you start doing that in the first place? First of all,
Yeah. So with the morning wake up thing, it was like, I don't know. I don't even know why. Actually, no, I do know why I started. So basically, I was listening to like David Goggins' audiobook. And every time I listen to David Goggins, bro, it just makes me mad. I don't know why. It's just like not like the good kind of mad. Like I want to go do something. Like it just gets me pumped up. And same with the Navy SEAL when he talked at chapel. Like I was just getting like all like, oh, I want to do something, you know? So I was getting pumped up and I was like, you know what? Screw, because me and my roommate Xander were talking about like, oh, waking up at 5:45 to go to the gym every morning. Oh, right. And so I just started waking up at 5:45. I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna wake up at 5:45. And the first day I was like, oh, this sucks. I'm not gonna go to the gym. I'm too tired. I'll just do some homework for the next day. And then I was like, shit, this is fire. Do my homework in the morning, get it all done, get it all out of the way. And then rest of the day, I have my classes, yeah. And then my off blocks, I'm all off. And then after school, I'm off. I mean, I got to go to bed a little earlier, but then it just takes all the stress of knowing that I have to go back and do my homework. It takes all that out of the picture, knowing that I have to do my homework after school's done, after my practice is done. When I'm tired, I just want to go to sleep and just relax. That stress is all gone. So it's just, I don't know. And low key is almost like a coping mechanism. Like this new environment at Peddie, more work, more this, more that. I feel like that's also like I wasn't, how you said we were pretty similar. I wasn't like this before I came to Peddie. Like I wouldn't sit out in nature and just enjoy the sounds. Like I would like if I told myself that before I came to Peddie, I'd be like, yeah, you're crazy, you're a weirdo. What the hell's wrong with you? But it's it's almost like a coping mechanism from when I came to Peddie. It's like, it's helped out because sounds of nature, depression, anxiety reduces it, just makes me feel a little better,
yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, did you do that English survey in class, like the long 30-minute one? Like,
yeah, I did, yeah.
there was like question like, what time do you start your homework? And like 5 a.m. wasn't an option. I was like, fuck, 4 p.m. is the earliest I can do. I'm like, wait, hold on, man.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I just clicked the earliest one, and it's like I do it way earlier than that, man.
But that surprised me that it's not like as common as we think, right? Like, I don't think anyone else does this, right? And it's surprising because like when I started doing it, I don't remember the exact reason why. I think it's because over the summer I woke up at like 7 every day, and I used to do like an hour or two of like my college app every day, and I just got in the habit of like waking up in the morning and working, and then like when I came to Petty and I would work after school, I felt like so shitty that I said like, okay, let's like tomorrow, let's just try waking up before school and doing homework, and I did it, and I was like, this feels good, man. Like I have nothing to do during the day, nothing to do after school. I have more time to do like what I actually want to do than the schoolwork. It's like it's so freeing, right? Like your mental state is so much better. Like you don't have that stress of shit you have to do stuff, and you can like I think you could finish it a lot faster in the morning when you're more alert and you haven't eaten anything yet. Like you're just in a better state of mind to do work, which is why like I think if people knew that, they'd probably try it more. But it also does take a lot of discipline, right, to like stay consistent with it. And I think I've tried to stay consistent with it. I think you've done a pretty good job. Obviously, like, once in a while we'll sleep in. Like it's not a big deal, but like I think the consistency of it is hard. And I think that's where people struggle the most. So tell me about the time you met Drake.
He's he's an inspirational figure in my life. So basically, I was living in Toronto, where I'm from. I'm from Toronto. I'm a Canadian guy, and he lives downtown, from like just across the street from me, where I'm at downtown. And it was quite funny actually. He just kind of like walked out on the street one day, all the paparazzi, but I was like in the front of the line, and he just kind of like he just like looked at me, and I had like a thing of maple syrup in my hand, and he was just like, "Yo, that's my favorite brand of maple syrup." So he brought me up to like his apartment, and we just like had pancakes together with maple syrup.
That sounds fire, bro. And is that like after the time you wrestled the polar bear, or was that before, or what is this on the timeline of things?
Uh, I think that was before, because I remember he was my moral support when I was wrestling the polar bear. Because polar bears are really dangerous actually in Canada. They're everywhere, so you have to leave your cars and your house doors unlocked in case a polar bear attacks, and then because people gotta like run in and hide, so you gotta leave your car door unlocked and stuff.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I mean, now that you've fought off, how many polar bears have you fought off in your career as a Canadian?
Uh, well, I mean, I'm only 17, so it's probably only 3 or 4 right now. Yeah.
And are you including Joseph Forbes or
Joseph Forbes, I'd put him more in the class category of a grizzly bear. He's a unit, that's for sure.
All right, that's enough with your Canadian stories. Let's get back to it. So like I know for you it's more of a recent thing. How did you deal with that feeling of like not like how did you deal with the feeling of you have to be consistent with it? And how did you end up like overcoming like the barriers that stood in your way for that?
It's hard. It's hard. Being disciplined is hard. And like the other day, for example, like this morning, I slept in till 7:30, which might not sound like much of a sleep in, but when you wake up at 5:45 every morning, that's sleeping in. Slept until 7:30. Last night, I was just on my phone. Like I try to reduce my screen time. Like I deleted TikTok and YouTube just so like I would try, and because I know like if I have them on my app, it's too hard not to on my phone. It's too hard not to go on it. Like I have to delete them. Otherwise, I'm gonna go on, and I can't control myself really. It's hard. I understand why people have difficulty doing stuff and making those changes. What was I gonna say?
I think it's related to like how you're like it's difficult to be consistent with it, but like it's how you've kind of overcome the difficulty of it. So
Oh yeah. So yeah, last night like I was on my phone. I was up till like 10 p.m. and I was like, damn, you know, wrestling tournament. Just had a wrestling tournament. I gotta get sleep. All right, I'll sleep in till like 7:30. I'll set my alarm for 7:30. And then I went and I took a shower. And I usually take cold showers. Took a hot shower. And I was I'm in the shower and I'm thinking, I'm getting weak, man. I'm getting mentally weak. Like I like once in a while is like it happens. Like you need a little bit of a break, but I'm getting mentally weak, man. And I just tell myself I hate that feeling where I've got like two sides to my shoulder, devil and the angel, and one's like, you know, oh, it's okay. You can take a warm shower. It's okay. You can do whatever you want. And then the other side's like, long-term goals, delayed gratification. Like it's hard. You got to balance it. It's a balance to do both. You got to do what's hard, and doing what's hard makes other stuff easy. And then, yeah, I don't know, it's hard.
and like I think I talked to you about this yesterday with like the angel and the devil concept. And what I understood recently is that like the fact that you slept in, right? I mean, there's benefits of like waking up early, right, for your health, and there's benefits of taking a cold shower for your health. But the fact of the matter is that it's not because that the fact that you slept in and you took the warm shower, it's not bad for you because it's going to somehow impede that long-term goal you set for yourself. But it's bad for you because of the story you tell yourself afterwards about the type of person you are to not be consistent with it and not like do what you're normally accustomed to doing, right? Like the day I sleep in after I've been staying consistent, like my first thought is that what if I stay this way? What if I sleep in tomorrow? What if like the feeling I feel right now is perpetual and it'll last forever? And then I start overthinking shit. And then I'm just like, fuck, I'm a piece of shit. And it's not like so much that like if I eat a chocolate bar, it's somehow so bad for my health that I'm gonna like feel like shit because it's bad for my health. But it's bad for me because of like the stories I tell myself in my mind and the delusions I'm looking at in the real world. And then, I think that's the scariest thing for me. Like the scariest feeling of like when I kind of mess up on my routine and then I feel like it's gonna last forever. Have you ever felt that before?
yeah, man, like there's things like I have to do every day. And if I like, because during the summer, I would try and do stuff. And like I did cold showers last year and then I stopped. And it's like now I'm back into a routine where I have to do stuff every day. I have to take a cold shower. I have to, wake up at 5:45. I have to do my homework in the morning. I read a little bit of the Bible before I go to bed, just like a tiny bit, just to read a little bit, just to read anything. I have to do that. Otherwise, like if I can't keep consistent with that, how am I supposed to keep consistent with anything else? Like do, if I can't wake up in the morning every morning, or if I can't like read a tiny little piece of script because I'm tired or whatever, how am I supposed to succeed in the real world or do whatever I want if I can't keep consistent, and it's a sucky feeling when you break that and you're like, damn, I feel myself getting weak. Like I feel like, and I mean, it's also a balance though, like there's stuff you have to do, but then you also just can't be like go, go, go all the time. So I do all that stuff. And then for the rest of the day, I'm just kind of like, I do whatever I want. Like, yeah, I have my obligations. Like I have to go to class and whatever. But like you were talking about the devil on the shoulder. That was about eating a Pop-Tart at the tournament. And you're there like, no, don't eat the Pop-Tart. You're probably gonna feel like shit after. And I'm like, and then Mossy is on the other side. He's like, yo, eat the Pop-Tart. It's gonna be good. You'll like it. And I was like, you know what? I wake up early in the morning. I do all this for my delayed gratification, for my later goals. Sometimes you got to have a little bit extra. I feel like there's a balance. That Pop-Tart, a little bit of dopamine. It's a good Pop-Tart. It's a good Pop-Tart.
Yeah, man, I've been trying to figure this out myself too. Like that, I think I'm so new to a lot of this stuff. Like I know that we're both kind of new to it. Like there's some things that started like about a year ago. So it's some of the things like I think like taking cold showers I started like last February, for example. But a lot of things like waking up early is pretty recent for me. Like things like I mean, I feel like I'm constantly adding new things, but like still I've been always struggling with this balance of like, okay, when do I take a break? Like, okay, am I justified in like slacking off here or there? Because when I do, I feel like horrible. And I think not like having a system around it makes me feel like it's gonna last forever. And like it's something I don't have the answers to yet, but I think I've found definitely like mental models of how to cope with that. Um, like I think there's knowing like I think having set periods every time where you're allowed to indulge in them and having periods of time where you're not allowed to indulge in them helps a lot, right? Like for example, I might say that over Thanksgiving break, I'm allowed to do X, Y, Z. But when I'm in the zone, like working toward a goal, like time stamped on like a calendar kind of thing, then I'm like, okay, until then, stay disciplined. And for things like cold showers in the morning, waking up early, like some things I love so much that I'll do every day anyways, right? Like I'm sure you enjoy cold showers as much as I do, that you'll do them every single day no matter what. And once in a while you'll slip up, right? But I think there are other disciplines I've added to my life. I think the discipline of not listening to music is the biggest one that like it changed my life so much. Like I think for you, like you don't listen to much music at all in the first place, like at least modern music. So maybe you wouldn't have felt like that dynamic effect of leaving it because you never were in it in the first place. But for me, going from listening to rap music every day to just not, the mental like state of peace you get is like indescribable, bro. And
Yeah, the only music I listen to is classical because it's just like, you know, it's peaceful. It's nice. I don't really listen to music that much, but yeah, I only listen to classical. I feel like rap would just, you're always wound up, you're always tight. I don't know. You can keep going if you're gonna say something.
yeah, but in the same way that like okay, the dopamine of the Pop Tarts like fine, right? The same way it's been hard for me to understand like what do I do with music, right? Because while on a day-to-day basis, I don't want to be listening to music because I know that I'd be at a better state of mind if I wasn't. At the same time, like the experience of listening to like a song that I love is so great that like I still want that in my life, right? Like I still want to listen to like Sublime or like Common or like all these people that I love. And I guess the system that I designed for that, like, I think I've noticed a lot that my mind works in like systems a lot. That like I like the idea of like randomness. I like the idea of like having systems in my life because for some reason that like kind of simplifies my life for me. So I created the system where it's like, okay, every day, like one day a month is like randomly generated where I'm allowed to listen to music. So like, okay, December 29th, okay, you're allowed to listen to music today. And then I can enjoy that music that day. And then for the rest of the month, not listen. And then like I'll have like 3 to 5 weeks in a year where I'm allowed to listen to music. And then like a month every like 2 years, I'll be allowed to listen for the whole month. Which I know is like a really weird system, but it helped me a lot because now it's like, okay, my next music week is in December, and I'm so excited for it. But I know that if I just like listen to music right now, like I'd feel like shit for the next few weeks because like I know that there's no sense of like limitation I'm placing on myself. But the fact that I have a constraint that's holding me back from doing it makes me, first of all, like feel better right now that I have some sort of like discipline in my life. But at the same time, like when it's time for me to enjoy it, like I enjoy it fully and I don't feel bad about it because it's kind of scheduled in as a time where I'm like allowed to kind of indulge in it. But that's helped me out a lot with that.
Yeah, you're a different breed for that, man. I don't know if I had a schedule like that, if I had a thing where I allowed myself to do something that I'm not allowed to do for like a week, I'd be like, okay, one more day, just one more day. It's not bad. It's just one more day. And then, maybe I'd go back to it for a little bit and then be like, oh, just another one, just here and there, just one day. And then eventually I'm going to lose my routine. And I feel like a lot of people have that kind of issue. A lot of people have that issue with discipline. It's like, oh, just one more. Like, for example, in the morning, instead of like clicking snooze, because a lot of people, like, you wake up, you're tired, you just go over and click snooze and you're back to bed. It's like, oh man, just 9 more minutes, please. But to combat that, I moved my alarm to the other side of the room. So I have to get up to go turn my alarm off. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I can't go and click snooze, because if you, at least for me anyway, you're clearly a different breed. You can handle that. But I like, if I start getting the idea that I can just do one more thing and it's like, oh yeah, this thing that feels good, and I'm just going to want to do it more. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. And that's why it's hard to stay disciplined, because you, you let yourself do this thing once in a while, and then you gradually make it more and more. And then it's just, you're back to how you were before. So it's like my roommate, for example, um, getting up early, uh, it's hard. And it's hard for a lot of people. Like, I remember one day this week. I mean, he doesn't miss class or anything. Yeah. He manages it, which I don't know how. I wouldn't be able to manage it. I'd end up sleeping through class. So he's good that way. He's figured it out somehow. But like, he told me he like woke up at like 7:47 and then like hit snooze or something, and then like woke up again at like 7:52 and was like, oh shit, I gotta get up and go. I was like, yeah, man, if I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to manage that every day, because you just keep clicking snooze sometimes, because you want to sleep, it feels good. I understand that, and I feel like that's why a lot of people have a hard time doing, like, staying consistent with stuff, because they let themselves do that thing, except for you. You have, yeah, yeah.
First of all, I wouldn't say I'm a different breed because I struggle with that as well. But I will say that like this notion of just one more, you did remind me of that, because I think I used to feel that a lot, but I am grateful that I think it's gone away with time. And if I think back to like why it's gone away, like I don't have a clear cut answer, but I think the first thing that comes to mind is that first, I think you'll feel bad if you fail in your routine, right? Like if you hit snooze and you wake up at like 6 instead of 5:30, whatever, right? I mean, obviously that's not that big of a deal, but like you will be kind of disappointed if you have been waking up at 5:45 every day or 5:30 every day, like missing up a little bit, or like taking a warm shower one day. And I think you do get like sort of a negative feeling when you mess up, but usually it happens like after you indulge in it. I think the big change has been that for some reason, like I've I've kind of felt that feeling even before I'm about to do it, that I know that I'm about to feel like shit. Yeah. Right. That like if I tell myself, okay, let's take a or I wouldn't even say take a warm shower. I'll just say like skip a cold shower this morning and like shower later. I think for me, like cold showers in the morning are the hardest thing. And that's what's been keeping me kind of lazy in the morning these days. Like the fact that I don't want to get up and take the cold shower first thing in the morning. But it's like I can like picture how bad I will feel if I don't do it. And I don't, maybe a lot of people don't have that. Maybe it's good for them because it can be pretty bad for like your mental state if you're, I mean, that hard on yourself or whatever. But I can kind of picture that if I don't do it, I'll start telling myself a story about who I am, and I'll start like feeling like shit. And then usually like that feeling enough is enough for me to just go and do the thing. Right.
Yeah, I feel you. It's like you gotta do it because it sucks. Like, you have to do it because it sucks. And yeah, it sucks, but you got to do it to stay consistent with a thing. And like, life is gonna suck. And honestly, doing things that suck, like, it makes other things seem easier. Like cold showers, wrestling practice. Wrestling practice sucks. But like, then you go to, I used to not like my history class because my teacher, like, I don't participate that much, but like, and I like my teacher, like he's a good teacher, but like he calls on me, like he makes me participate. But it's like, if I can deal with wrestling practice, I can deal with participating in class. Like, it's not that bad. So when you do things that suck, it makes other stuff like more fun. It makes other stuff seem easier. And it's that kind of like that acceleration that is happiness, I guess, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I love that concept a lot. And I think one of the biggest changes I've seen is that like I think there's different levels of things that discomfort you, right? Let's say from a level of 1 to 10. If you have no discomfort in your life, even the level 1 discomforts will feel like level 10 discomforts, right? Which is why like if you look at me like in middle school going about my day, I feel like shit all the time because little things would bother me. Right. I was bothered by like little things here and there, here and there, here and there. But the second you put like a level 6 discomfort in my life, like a wrestling practice, all of these ones kind of go away, right? And you can kind of go to class like feeling pretty good, right? Looking around and like feeling more grateful and feeling good. But for me, feeling good in life on a just day-to-day basis, like walking around and enjoying life, I can't feel that unless I'm wrestling. Because if I was looking at last season, that's when I first really felt it. Last wrestling season, I felt pretty good. Wrestling and everything, pushing myself hard. I pushed myself like, at such a high discomfort level that like all the miniature things that would bother me kind of go away. Season ends and those things start to crawl back in, and I'm not feeling as great all the time. And then I think about a month or two after season ends, I decided to keep wrestling by going to elite, and instantly my life's back to feeling how it was. A whole summer I can look back. I didn't wrestle the whole summer, but and those things started to creep up back again. Fall term wrestling again, everything's gone. Which is amazing, right? Like how, as you mentioned, that the wrestling practice that you're engaging in is making like things in your life not seem that bad anymore. Like I think in the same way, all these like miniature things that bother you on a daily basis just go away when you experience that discomfort.
Yeah. So it's like, so I started doing like cold showers and stuff before the wrestling season started. So, and football practice, um, it wasn't as hard as wrestling practice. And then as soon as wrestling practice came around, it was like, it's just a slap in the face. Like, oh my God, this sucks. This is right after football season. And, I still haven't fully recovered from my injuries from football because it's like immediately after. And, you know, I'm practicing against big 270 man, big grizzly bear. And it's it's hard. And I remember like taking cold showers in the wrestling locker room, and I'm like, this sucks, man. I don't want to take a cold shower. But I know like if I stop taking a cold shower, I'm like, what are you, weak? What, you can't handle a cold shower? But then it's like it makes other things easier. And it's incremental change too. It's like you can't just throw all this stuff on at once. You can't start waking up at 5:45, start taking cold showers, start going hard at wrestling practice. You got to do it incrementally. So you got to, one day, try waking up at 5:45 for a week. You get used to it. Then you wake up at 5:45 for a week. And then, you know, then you start taking cold showers. And it's like, okay, this sucks. Get used to it. And then, doing wrestling practices. And that was hard to stick with it, but I managed to do it. Yeah, you got to do it incrementally. Otherwise it's gonna be too much. You can't manage it if you pile it all on at once. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. So there was this other thing I was thinking about recently that I just remembered when we were talking about this idea of like the miniature discomforts going away when you deal with that first discomfort. Um, I think when people are like trying to find the root of suffering, right, which I think what a lot of religious and everyone's trying to do, like what is like the source of suffering? People tend to go back to the idea that your emotions are the source of suffering, right? I think that's what Buddhism talks about, all these things that like you're like it's not like the external thing will make you happy, it's like your emotional state, right? I think one more thing I learned this week was that like it's not like 100% only your emotions that make you unhappy, but it's also your secondary emotions, which is like how you feel about how you feel, right? Hear me out. So you might feel sad, you might feel angry, you might feel anxious, you might feel depressed. It's like emotions, right? It's part of life. And I always feel like those are the reasons why you're unhappy, right? Just because of the emotion, right? That the fact that I feel sad is like why I don't feel great right now. I feel angry, which is the source of the suffering. But a lot of the times it's like not even the fact that I feel sad, but it's that I feel that being sad is a bad thing, or that I feel that being angry is a bad thing, or that I feel like feeling shit is like a bad thing. Like the way I feel about how I feel, which is honestly like if I look back at moments where like I'm really like lower in like my mental state, it's usually when I like I'm so hard on myself on not wanting to feel those emotions, right? That like again like the story you tell yourself, right? That I feel like feeling sad is a bad thing, feeling angry is a bad thing. But I think like slowly as I've started to like just not try to remove the secondary emotion, just be like I'm sad and that's okay, or like I'm angry, that's okay. then all of a sudden, like I feel like your state of mind is like so much better. But I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I've ever really experienced that. I know like sometimes before I come to Petty, like, maybe I just all of a sudden I'm feeling like anxious or something. And I'm thinking like, well, why do I feel anxious? And it's like, oh, I got all this stuff to do, but it only seems like a lot. And then like you break it down. So I don't know. I don't know if this is exactly what you were talking about, but like when you have these emotions, like you're sad or you're angry, and then maybe if you want to get rid of it, like, yeah, it's okay to be angry sometimes, you know, it's emotions. If you're never angry, then you can never be happy. If you're never sad, you can never be happy. You know, it's you need to have both. It's like in football. If you don't have a run game, you don't have a pass game. It's like, you gotta you need a balance. Just like everything. Life is a balancing act. But like if I remember like being anxious and I'm like, well, why am I anxious? And then I'm just going through it like, well, this is what I have to do. This is how I can do it. Do this during that time, do that during that time. It'll be all good. I don't need to be anxious. Why am I anxious? And then I realized that there's nothing to be anxious about. So it's all good. Don't be anxious no more.
So talk to me more about like dealing with the feeling of anxiousness, right? Like I know like usually anxiousness comes from like having a lot on your mind or like feeling like you have a lot to do. So and obviously petty might be correlated with that if you have additional work. So like what is like the strategies you've used to deal with that anxiousness?
Just like planning around it. Like, yeah, anxiousness. It's like when you feel overwhelmed, at least for me, it's like when I feel like I've got all this stuff to do. Like if I'm at a wrestling tournament, I'm like, oh shit, I got all this homework to do for I got all this homework to do on Sunday and I want to get some of it done on Monday so that I don't have, so that I have Monday morning to do my homework for Tuesday so that I'm like getting ahead for the week. It's like, man, I got a lot of stuff to do. And, but it's like planning it out. So like knowing how much stuff you have, like actually checking, like, okay, I have this physics thing. That's going to take a half an hour. I have this history thing. That's going to take 40 minutes. So if I wake up at 7:30, that gives me 2.5 hours before brunch, which starts at 10. I can get all that in. Sounds good. I don't need to be anxious about it because I have the time. I don't have nothing to do about it. So it's just like not just like being emotional to be emotional, but breaking it down, like why being more analytical with things and more like um I don't know what the word is,
Like
but
structure maybe. Like
yeah, structured, more yeah, more structured with it, like more like you're not more reasonable, like instead of like being all emotional all the time. It's like, okay, well, this is actually what I have to do. So there's no point in being all that. But I mean, I don't really know. Again, I'm young too, so I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah, I think planning it out does help you a lot, right? Because the problem in your mind is probably a lot bigger than it actually is. And just like having a list of it, um, like I think the way you did it really nicely, like setting up time frames, like how long it'll actually gonna take me and then doing it. I think another thing that's helped me out a lot is that like getting it done earlier than it has to be getting done. Because like I used to think that like having more time was always a good thing. That like, oh, if I have like 2 weeks to write this essay or something, or if 2 weeks to present this project, then I'll have better because I have more time to prepare for it and they'll decrease my anxiety. But I noticed that when I have a longer deadline, my anxiety actually increases. Right. So I'll tell you like how I realized this. So I think we had was like a French class in the beginning of the year, and then you could choose a date you want to present or something. I chose the first date. Or like I think I did the same thing for like a comp sci presentation. I always choose the first date available because like sure you might be anxious for like 2 days or one day, but then you just get it done, and then you're like you feel so much better the next week that it's done. But before in the past years when I would like choose a last deadline so I have as much time to prepare for it as possible, I'm anxious for the whole 2 weeks period. The fact that I have more time did not reduce my anxiety at all. But I think that getting things out of the way is like a big one too. Just like check it off, get it done with. Like the thing that's been like stressing you out for a while, just like do something about it and get it away with. I think that's also helped me a lot with that.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like, your deadline's closer, so you got to get it done. So maybe you're a little bit anxious for it, and maybe you're more anxious than you would be for the longer period deadline, but because you're anxious for a longer amount of time to the deadline, it feels like you're more anxious. Like it's cumulative,
Yeah, like it
cumulative.
compounds over time.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's it's like in physics, we're talking about work right now, where work is like force over distance, where maybe if we relate that to your anxiety, the distance until your deadline is, you might have a lot of force. So you might be like, there might be more like anxious, whatever that quantifier is, but because it's short distance, let's say you're 6 out of 10 on the anxious scale for your close deadline, but it's only 3 days away. 6 times 3, you're only 18. You're only 18 anxious. 18 anxious.
Yeah, I think I understand 100% now that equation helps me out.
Yeah, and then if you're like your thing's like in 2 weeks, or maybe it's in like 5 days instead of 3 days, and you're like 5 anxious instead of 6 anxious, then 5 times 5 is 25, so you end up being totally more anxious. I don't know if that makes sense, but that kind of makes sense in my mind.
No, 100%. No, it does low key though, because like I even feel like if I have a 1 day deadline or a 20 day deadline, like I'll feel the same level of like stress about it. So that's why like, getting it done is like it's out of there. Um, Going back to, I think you mentioned that like spending time outside was something you started recently at Peddie. Like you mentioned that you hadn't done it a lot before. So what is the reasons why you started doing that? What's the reasons why you started to like just take breaks, sit outside, like by the lake or whatever? Like what caused you to want to start that?
This is going to take a lot of unpacking. So before coming to Petty, I was at my grandparents' cottage for a week, just helping out. And it's like, and I got into fishing because there's a lot of downtime. Like, you're really just, you're pulling weeds, helping move the dock or something. There's a lot of downtime. So I got into fishing and just like sitting there waiting for the bobber to go, or like just reeling it in, waiting to catch a fish. And, just enjoying like just sitting out there. And that's like the first time, like I was like, I actually enjoy fishing. And I don't know, I'm not sure why. It's just like, for whatever reason, just sitting there in the tranquility it was nice. It was like, the water's moving. I got to see a beaver, like a beaver, like I have a video of it. It's just like swam right past in front of me. First time I've ever seen a beaver. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I enjoyed fishing. And then coming to Petty, it was a big adjustment. I've never been like away from home for that long. And I feel like sitting outside and just like, enjoying the nature and the lake helps. I feel like that kind of like brings me back, it makes me feel like I'm a little bit at home. And that's kind of like, and also the Secrets of Nature English class, that also helped me out with it. That like helped me kind of realize it, it's like nature. I don't even remember like what we were talking about, but just somehow like it made me like think about like in birds too. Like my dad and my mom, like they like birds. There's always bird feeders, so that's what got me like the app. So I like to listen to the birds because it reminds me of home a little bit. Because I don't like before I always had birds. Like there's always birds in the backyard. Oh, it's a bird. Okay, so what? But now I'm here. There's not so many birds. And then when I see those birds that I always see, it's like, oh yeah, I have those. Oh, I know what that sounds like because I've heard that so many times. Just kind of makes me think about being back at home, which is it's nice.
Wait, so you feel you can like recognize the bird by the bird sound?
Sometimes I'm not like a crazy bird guru. I still have the little app to like do it for me, but like I'm like I can it tells you like when it identifies a bird. So it's like I'll hear the sound and then I'll look at the app and it'll be like flashing this bird and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so that's what that bird sounds like. And I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize that. So like I know what a blue jay sounds like. um I know what like house sparrows sound like, like chickadees. I don't think I could tell you what a cardinal sounds like. um I know what Canada geese sound like, but those are pretty obvious.
Can you give some examples by making some sounds for us?
I mean, I can do this. This is a cool thing I learned to do at like summer camp. It was like,
Careful, man. The birds might show up right here.
yeah. Hopefully the mic picked that up good. I don't know if it was echoey or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I think when I did a bit of fishing over the summer too. I didn't see a beaver, but I heard a beaver because when they slap the water with their tails, it sounds like a gunshot. So yeah, we were fishing by like a beaver lodge. I didn't catch anything there, but I got a couple catches over the summer. Fishing is fun, man. Like, I had a grad student at the lab I was working at, and we used to go out fishing a lot. But it's fun. I haven't done it a lot recently. Have you tried fishing out here at this lake or?
No, I haven't. I was thinking about it like earlier. It's kind of too late now. I feel like the fishing wouldn't be that great. It's in the fall and then it's about to be winter. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a fishing expert or anything, so I don't know what the fishing would be like. But I remember like at the beginning of the year, like asking asking guys like, how old do I have to be to get a license? Where could I get a fishing rod from? Like I was just like thinking about this kind of stuff. And then so I looked into it. I'm pretty sure a license, I'm an out of state, so I'm not a New Jersey citizen. So I would need to get like an out of state fishing license, which is like it's a little more expensive than like an in-state fishing license. And because in Ontario, you don't need a fishing license until you're over 18, but in New Jersey it's 16. So I would need a fishing license. It's costs like $40, maybe, I think. $40. Plus I'd have to go get a rod and then where to keep the rod. And it's like, I'd have to have the time. And it's like maybe I'd rather just spend the time sleeping or something, or I don't know.
Yeah. I know that or the US in general has a lot of regulations with fishing. Like you have to get a license and everything. Would you say like there's a lot of regulations in Canada as well, or is it more like laid back? Like you can kind of just go out and do it, or
No, there's a regulation. Like there's a story. My grandma, love my grandma. She loves to talk though. She talks a lot. So she told me this story. She was up at the cottage, my uncle and his wife. So no, are they? I don't know if it's his wife yet. But anyways, and then like her kids were up there. And then so it's like my cousin-in-law almost. I don't know. I'm not sure how the logistics work. Anyways, they were up there. He likes to fish. He's big into fishing. He's not 18 yet. He's younger than me, so he doesn't need a license yet to fish. But they're telling me this story about how he left his rods out on the dock with, I think they were still cast, and so then there's like police boat comes by, confiscates the rods, knocks on the doors, like, excuse me, did you realize that you had your rods in the thing? And then they gave him a fine, or no, maybe they didn't give him a fine, but and then they gave him his rods back because he's like 14 or something. So it's like, yeah, this is just a warning this time. But like, yeah, they told me. So yeah, there's rules. Like I didn't even hear about that rule, but there's rules that.
yeah. Well, man, any other topics you want to talk about? What you got on mind?
I don't know. I have to think. I was thinking about like topics earlier. I was like, what could we talk about?
Yeah, I can ask you a question.
Huh?
Yep. So, how about you take a minute here to think about maybe like the biggest life story that you have that has kind of shaped your perspective about the world? Maybe like a moment or some kind of story that's made you think differently about how the way the world works. So you can take a minute to think about it, but
Bro, I don't even need a minute, bro. Just petty, bro. Just petty. Like just being here, it's a different experience. And I think the biggest one was I was saying earlier in the podcast, like how I go back home and I realize I have a limited amount of time at home with my buddies. So I got to try and like pack it full. Like, people might go home and like relax and go on YouTube or whatever. But when I went home, I tried to spend as much time. Like I tried to like pack my schedule full of like, just like, I don't know, hanging out or doing something useful, things that I can't do here that I can do at home. And it's like when you have that finite amount of time, you got to use it usefully. And I'm not at the point yet where I'm doing that with like all of life yet, because obviously you can extend that. Like, I only had a week and I only have so many years. So I might as well like try and get all the experiences I can. I'm not at that point yet. I don't think. It might take a little bit for me to like start doing that, but like the realization is there. Like you only have so much time. You got to like spend it well. I think that's the biggest thing. Like low key, I learned. I was like, I came back and I was like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy. How about you, man? What's your biggest like experience that's like shaped how you see the world?
I got to think about that, man. I'll get back to you, but we'll get back to that. But one thing I did want to mention that I liked in your story was the idea of a constraint, the constraint that is petty, right? Like I realized recently that constraints are like a really good thing, right? Like I used to think that like I really wish that I had less constraints in my life so I could do more of what I wanted to do, right? For example, I love to work on the podcast. I love to wrestle. I love to hang out with my friends. I kind of wish that I didn't have to go through school and everything so I can kind of just work on what I want to work on and do what I want to do. But I realized that the constraints are essential if you want to appreciate what's in front of you, which I think you've learned that lesson through the constraint of Petty, right? Like I think the example with music, I think right now I enjoy music more than I ever have in my life. And it's funny because I listen to the least amount of music. Like if you look at me, I think December 2020, I listened to 20 Spotify Wraps at 21,000 minutes of music in just 1 month, which is an average of six.
Wait, how much? How say that again?
21,000 minutes in 1 month, which is an average of 6 hours a day. And like I was in COVID lockdown. I was playing like fuck man. It was probably 2021 actually. I was like listening to music all day, bro. Like it was my speakers is on all day. But I probably listened to close to like 5 minutes in the last month, and I enjoy music more than I ever have because I have a constraint, and for some reason that makes you enjoy it more. The fact that I'm so excited for my next music day makes me just love music so much more, right? And I think for you, like, sure, being at home with your friends was fun in the summer and things like that, but that moment in Thanksgiving is what you described as your best moment, not like the summer, because you had the constraint and then made it appreciate what's in front of you more. Because you hear all those quotes that are like, you can't appreciate something until you lose it. You know, it's true. Like you need a constraint. Like as cringe as the quote might seem, like the fact is true that you need something holding you back, right? Whether that be like petty as like the thing that's taking up all my time in the day. Like sure, it's so annoying that I have to go to school all day, but I'm so excited for Sunday because I get to record the podcast. And I appreciate it more. No.
It's about that acceleration. Like I heard the the analogy that like it's like in a car, like happiness, it's like acceleration. Like you don't feel the acceleration when you're going 150 miles an hour, but you feel it when you're going from like if you go to 0 to 30 real quick, you feel that acceleration. But even though the top speed might not be as fast as 150 miles an hour, it's like shakes in Saudi Arabia or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how happy they are. They might be the happiest men in the world, but as far like if I had to guess, I would say they're no happier than me or you because I mean they've just had that for their entire life. You know, they the food probably doesn't taste as good for them. You know, because they've been having all this gourmet stuff all the time, so it doesn't taste as good. But like when you do stuff that sucks, going back to like taking cold showers and waking up in the morning, when you do stuff that sucks, it makes the other things feel so good. You know, like I took a warm shower the other day. That was a good warm shower. I hated myself for doing it because like you're weak, but it was a good warm shower. You know, it felt good. It's like it's kind of like that acceleration. You know,
Well, I think the way I've coped with the warm shower versus cold shower thing is that like I take a cold shower in the morning and a warm shower at night. And I don't even feel like I'm like a pussy for doing that because there's like scientific reasons backing up why that's a good thing. Because like the cold shower wakes you up morning, keeps you more awake throughout the day. And the warm shower actually lowers your body temperature. You get better sleep if you take a warm shower before you sleep. So mentally, I don't even feel guilty for taking a warm shower every night. 'Cause I know I'm gonna take a cold shower the next morning. So that's kind of like I enjoy warm showers too. I think it's a way I can find that balance. But going back to what you were just talking about with the acceleration piece, you know, I think the biggest lie that I've always thought or I've been told or like the biggest misunderstanding I've had about happiness is that it's quantifiable based on what you have, right? The number of friends equals how happy you are. The number of money in your bank account equals how happy you are, right? Because when I went from a zone where I didn't have a lot of friends, because I was kind of on the same side as you, that I wasn't as like social, like at least when I was, I think it's out of battery. That's fine. Yeah. Like I was in the same zone as you were, like I was less social and everything like that, right? But then I tried to socialize more and I made a couple of new friends and my happiness correlated with the fact that I had more friends. And I thought that, okay, it must be a linear term. So I kept getting more friends and it kept going up like this until it tapers off and you have the shallow bond dilemma that we talked about before. But it's not a quantifiable term in terms of like I have 10 friends, you have 5 friends, so I'm like 5 friends happier than you. Like that's not how it works. Happiness is a relative term. It's what you have today minus what you had yesterday. It's just that simple, right? Which is why like people who don't have a lot are very happy people, and people who are rich may not be as happy people. And it's not to say that money is bad, right? I'm not saying that like this is a universal term that being rich is bad and being poor is good, but it's that there can be people that are rich and sad, although it might not be everyone. There can be people that are poor and happy, although it might not be everyone. But the fact of the matter is, it's not about how much you have, right? Like having money is cool, getting money is what actually makes you feel good. The obtaining it, right? Increasing it. And which is why, like, when I say it's a relative term, it's also about like what's around you, right? The reason why volunteering makes you feel happy is because you compare yourself to them when you volunteer and help them out. And you realize that you have more to be grateful for than you realize when you're around people that are below you. But if you're constantly on social media looking at people that are above you with the fancy cars and all the money, you're always going to feel like you're a piece of shit because you're always comparing yourself to people that have so much more than you, right? But yeah, I think when you say what is one of my biggest like learnings, I think recently it's definitely that like happiness is not a quantifiable term. It's a relative term. It's purely like how much you have today minus how much you had yesterday.
Yeah, man. Like you can be poor and broke but like you can have the best time of your life on the couch somewhere in your broke bummy ass apartment with the boys and a couple of beers, you know. That can be the ultimate goal. So it's just like you have to know like, you know, what makes you happy. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe for some people it's a family. So you got to go out, you get a job, make enough money to support the family. And then but then you don't want to pursue all the money so much. So you you only become like middle class. You don't go upper middle class because you're you're not pursuing the money so much. You're trying to spend time with your family, right? You're and I know that like guys like Warren Buffett, it's common to idolize guys like that. Like, oh, I want to be rich. I want to do that. I want to have all that money and then I can do whatever I want. But guys like that, like it's an obsession, you know, like they're in love with making money. That's what makes them, and they're good at it too. But they're like in love with the work. So they're not in love with the number in their bank account. They're in love with the work that they put in that makes that money. You know what I'm saying? And so I think you gotta find what makes you happy. Like when people say do what you love, Warren Buffett, man, he loves making money. I swear. And that's what like same with like guys like Elon Musk and like I don't know Bill Gates. Like they love that stuff. They just I mean also part of it, you know, they probably got a little bit lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. They had the they had the right idea at the right time and they monetized it properly, you know. But yeah, you just got to find what makes you happy, what you value, and then how do you get there? How do you achieve that long-term goal? And you can't be you can't be sacrificing that goal with those short-term um, dopamine hits and those short-term goals that we were talking about at the beginning. You know, it's all about consistency, man. You know, it's all about consistency.
100%, man. Well, thank you so much for coming down tonight. It's a beautiful rainy day outside, but now let's go on to do our Sunday things.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Peace, bro.